Who is going to the Super Bowl this year? Got a classic matchup that we're predicting on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert from Locked On Titans, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert from Locked On Cardinals. Today's edition of Locked On NFL is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. But we're making our official team predictions on today's show. Who will go to the Super Bowl? Who will win each division? Who the wild card teams will be and won't be? A lot to discuss on today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Again, make sure that you subscribe to the show. It's your team every day here on the Locked On NFL podcast. But with that being said, Alex, we'll dive straight in here. It is prediction time. Your prediction for the two teams that will be in the Super Bowl this season.
Well, let's start with the NFC. This is going to be the last time we talk about this team as Super Bowl contenders, probably for the next 3 or 4 seasons. It's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. This is their swan song, the last ride, because they're going to have to pick Brock Purdy or all the good players that they have on their team pretty much. Two of them are still holding out with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams. You expect both those guys to be ready to rock. I think it's just, I don't believe in Philly. I think they lost the heart when they lost Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. I think Jalen Hurts is starting to become exposed a little bit. And then, Tyler, you and I are going into our 4th season doing this, and there's one thing that I say now, and it's Patrick Mahomes until it's not. So It's Patrick Mahomes, and I would be surprised if they don't win a 3rd Super Bowl in a row. Wouldn't you? Like, why would you choose against him? Now, we'll give dark horse ideas because I have a couple names that, could push through. We don't know what's going to happen with injuries and otherwise. But 49ers Chiefs, boring, but a lot of times boring is right.
Yeah, a lot of the time the boring answer is the right answer. I'm with you there. And look, I'm going to be half boring. I'm going to stick with you. I'm not going against it. It's Patrick Mahomes until it isn't. I don't think the Chiefs got better, in my opinion. They're a better team now. There are some question marks still, as there are with any football team going into the season. But I do think that Kansas City gets back to the championship. I do think that ultimately they do three-peat. I think that they win the championship again. I think that Patrick Mahomes is a level of dominant that we really haven't seen. I mean, Tom Brady won his fair share of championships, but Tom Brady never won 3 in a row. And I think that's something that Patrick Mahomes is going to do, and they're going to look at it and be like, hey, Tom Brady ultimately won more championships, but the peak of Patrick Mahomes was better than the peak of Tom Brady. And I think that argument's getting more compelling because, honestly, you could say that Tom Brady's peak as a player, he didn't win any championships. They lost both of those to the New York Giants. That might have been Brady's best football when he had Randy Moss and they almost went undefeated and all of that. So I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to do something that sets him apart from Tom Brady here and gives him a legitimate argument as the best of all time at the end of his career, even if he doesn't win 7 championships like Tom Brady total. And we'll have that LeBron James, Michael Jordan debate for the rest of eternity, but in the NFL with Mahomes and Brady. But on the other side of that game is really where my prediction becomes bold. I'm not going with San Francisco. I think we're seeing that Super Bowl hangover that you get from teams that go and then lose. We saw it with the Bengals. They've had some down seasons. I think San Francisco is going to have one of those with the Brandon Ayuk situation. And honestly, you mentioned it, I think last week that we talked. The Trent Williams situation may actually be a worse thing than the Brandon Ayuk situation for San Francisco. Trent Williams is maybe the best offensive tackle of all time, or at least he's in the conversation. Incredibly important when they didn't have one of their top receivers in Deebo Samuel, and they didn't have Trent Williams at the same time last year. They lost 3 straight games in a row. So I think that this is just off to a bad start. I think people are going to start having that money conversation with Brock Purdy, and it's going to put extra pressure on things. I think the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. The Green Bay Packers I believe the first Super Bowl ever was Packers-Chiefs. That's why I called it a classic matchup in the intro. I think the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love find a way to get to the Super Bowl. I ultimately think Patrick Mahomes wins, but I think that this version of the Green Bay Packers is good enough to get there, and I think they do get there. I think Jordan Love is worth the money, and maybe, they don't ever win a Super Bowl with Love, but I think they paid him what you got to pay for good quarterbacks now, and I think Green Bay will make that push to the Super Bowl. How crazy do you think I am to go with Green Bay here? And if you don't like Green Bay, who are some other teams that you're looking at?
No, it's interesting. It's interesting you say Green Bay. You hinted at that last week, where you said Green Bay was a team that is going to have some meteoric rise this year, and I don't think that's necessarily outside of the question. It's funny that you say them because they were the opponent that played the 49ers preceding the team that I am picking, which is the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions should have beat the 49ers. The Packers had a chance to beat. It would have had to been an Aaron Rodgers-like fourth quarter comeback where he didn't throw the ball across his body for an interception, Jordan Love, to end the game. But the Detroit Lions are the most adult football team in the NFC. Like, they're the most – instability has been the 49ers, but they've been able, with the star power in Christian McCaffrey, to be able to kind of level up and circumvent that. The Lions are like a metronome, man. Like, it's just, okay, you got David Montgomery, you got Jahmyr Gibbs. You got maybe one of the best offensive lines in football. You got a great defensive line. You've got Jared Goff, who has been consistent pretty much his entire career, even though he's looked at as like this stepchild to Matthew Stafford, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think they are equipped enough to beat the 49ers. It doesn't have to be star power, but I think slow and steady with Jared Goff will supersede Jordan Love in that sense, if there were to be another one. Now, with the AFC, there's only one other, and it's kind of home cooking for you. The only offense that could hold up to the Chiefs team is the Bengals, if they can stay healthy. And that's something, if Joe Burrow plays 17 games, that's your 1 and 2 seed. And who it is going to be, directly correlated with who's going to get the home field advantage. I just think that with how the AFC West is set up, this could be the easiest road for the Chiefs to win the AFC West. And if they lock up that 1 seed, good luck going through Arrowhead and winning any games.
And not only that, but the AFC North on the other end of things is incredibly difficult, which means the odds of the Bengals getting the number 1 seed and the Chiefs getting the 2 seed is just low. I do think the Bengals are a team that does make sense. I honestly was going to look on the other side of things. This is a real dark horse, but the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
If Kirk Cousins is healthy, even if Michael Penix Jr. is good, one of my bold predictions this year was that Michael Penix Jr. is the best quarterback on that team. I just think they have a good offensive line. They have good weapons. If they're coached properly, which seems like was the missing link with Arthur Smith, I think they're significantly more talented as a roster than anybody else in their division as well, which helps them get good, good positioning, good seating. I think the Atlanta Falcons could be a sleeper Super Bowl team, a dark horse Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and I think there's one more for me that's way outside. It's on the AFC side, so obviously I think it's going to have to go incredibly wrong. If the Houston Texans have told us exactly who they are and they're exactly who they are, they've gotten immensely better this offseason on both sides of the ball. Like, they've got their level up may be the most out of any team. I know your text, like, from where they were to what they've added, it's not just Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. They've added big pieces on the defensive side of the ball. It's like they've got one of the easiest divisions to get through in football. I mean, it's something that, and who knows with Indy and everybody, like, who knows, Jacksonville. If Houston is who they say they are, they could for sure make the Super Bowl. You just have to hope that Cleveland or that Cincinnati plays Kansas City or Buffalo plays Kansas City and gets a dub or something like that to make the path easier. But if they are who they say they are, you could be seeing CJ Stroud, quarterbacking in the Super Bowl.
Man, I would love if we looked up on divisional weekend and we had like Texans, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, those 4. That would be some fun football. But with that being said, we talked about the Super Bowl teams, but who is going to win each division in the NFL? We're going to look at that. Before we do, want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Look, I personally love taking a 5-hour energy right after lunch. You guys know the feeling. It's right after lunch. You're a little tired. Trust me, you're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit a wall after lunch. I get a little tired after I eat, okay? I can't help it. Let a 5-hour energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst. I love a tropical flavor. Grape, berry, and more. There is a flavor for everyone. You should try them all on the site. You even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You can choose your flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONFB. That's LOCKEDONFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, Alex, let's continue this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Talked about our predictions for who makes the Super Bowl. I got the Chiefs winning over the Packers. You got the Chiefs winning once again over the 49ers. Talked about some dark horse options, and those dark horse options were also teams that I think are going to win their division. So let's talk division winners here. Our predictions for that. We'll also predict who makes the wild card spots, and more importantly, probably, who doesn't get those wild card spots, who doesn't make the playoffs this year, because there's a lot of parity in the NFL as always, so it's always going to be a little bit of a shocker when certain teams don't get in. But looking at the divisions, Alex, I'll let you go first. Let's start in the NFC, because we give a lot of love to the Chiefs in the AFC. Let's start in the NFC here. Who do you think wins the divisions in the NFC?
So let's start with the NFC West. You just take the 49ers there. I know the Rams are improved. Their defense is young. I know that, the Seahawks have new head coach, new coordinators, more talent. I just still think Geno Smith isn't the guy. So I'll just take the 49ers there and make it easy. NFC South, you take the Falcons there. It's close. Like, if you tell me the Bucs win the division, you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to pick the Bucs to win the division there, because consistent as gravity wins in the NFL. Baker Mayfield has emerged again as a super solid, great leader quarterback. He's your B-level quarterback, and that's all you need. We'll see if they can get more production out of Rachaad White efficiency-wise. They still have Chris Godwin. They still have Mike Evans, and you run it back. I'm going to leave the NFC North for last. NFC East, I think by default here, you got to choose the Eagles. I think signing Dalvin Cook was a big deal for the Cowboys. I don't think he's done. I think being with the Jets, being behind Breece Hall, and not having any sort of offensive line help and having no quarterback for the entire year kind of marred Dalvin Cook in East Rutherford. But I still got to take the Eagles there. And the NFC North, I'm taking the Lions. I don't believe that the Packers can win 10 games or 11 games. And I think a lot of it is going to be friendly fire there, where they're going to all beat each other with the Bears in place. I'm sure Minnesota's going to snag 1 or 2 division games just because, Kevin O'Connell's a good coach, and I'll have those guys prep with Sam Darnold. So I'm taking the Lions in the NFC North.
Okay. All right. I have 2 different ones. So we disagree in 2 spaces. Sure. I'll go first. I think the 49ers win their division. I don't think they get the number 1 seed, though.
Okay.
I don't think that they get a bye. I think it's kind of a struggle for San Francisco, but they still win. They go like 10-7, 11-6, something like that. They still win the division, but it's not as clean as you would think. I also have the Eagles winning by default. I just don't trust any of the other teams. Yeah. I personally don't believe in Dalvin Cook. I think having Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, and Rico Dowdle, like, that is a tough spot for Dallas. And there's just something in the water with Dallas this year. Yeah. I just, it's like San Francisco. I don't know. So I'm going with the Eagles as well. The other 2 teams, I think the Packers do win the NFC North. I think everybody expects the Lions to win, and that'll be one of those things where things go differently than we expect. I think the Packers do win about 13, 12 games and get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I think that that's why that they're able to get to the Super Bowl, because everyone has to go through Lambeau, and that's historically a tough place to play. So I have the Eagles, the Packers, the 49ers, and then the Falcons. I'm going to continue that Falcons trajectory. I think the Falcons are 10-7 right in there. I think they're the best team in a bad division. I think they're a dark horse Super Bowl team because they could get really hot because they have talent. And if they just get hot at the end and they're rolling, you never know what can happen in the NFL. That's why we love it so much. But I think they win a bad division. The Bucs go 8-9. is what I'm thinking, 9-8, something like that. But the Falcons just edge them out at the end of the year. So I have Eagles, Packers, Falcons, 49ers. And then moving to the AFC, it's kind of chalky. The Chiefs, I don't think anybody's getting even close to the Chiefs in that division. The Chargers could be improved, but not enough. And then I have the Texans. I cover the AFC South. I think that the Titans are underrated, but they're still not going to be a great team, like a division winner. I think that the Jaguars and the Colts are both overrated as teams. I think they're more middling teams than anybody fighting for the division. I think Houston is far and away the most talented roster. Yeah. So I'm going with Houston to win that division. The Bills, I'm still sticking with the Bills. I believe in Josh Allen. I just think they're going to figure it out. I think it might be addition by subtraction, like we saw with Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, and they go on to win still. I think we could see something like that losing Diggs in Buffalo. And I just don't trust the Jets. I just don't trust them. And Miami, they lost some stuff on the offensive line and defensive lines. Odell Beckham's already hurt. I just think the flash in the pan that is Miami kind of takes a step back this year. Mm-hmm. So Chiefs, Texans, Bills, I don't think that, I'm making any bold statements there, but I am going back to the Bengals well. Yep. I picked the Ravens last year and said the Bengals aren't winning the division this year. It's the Ravens' year. I'm going back the other way this year. I think Burrow does stay healthy. I think the Bengals win that division. So Chiefs, Texans, Bengals, Bills for division winners in the AFC for me. Who's your AFC teams?
Yeah, I agree with you with that. So I will take
4-for-4 sweep.
No. I'll take the Bengals. Okay. This is what I'm calling the year of the quarterback. Okay, this isn't going to be defense. This is going to be who the best quarterback is. And if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, and that's always how it is, but there are ways for defenses. Baker Mayfield's a perfect example. They made the playoffs. They won the division last year. You can make up for things with different things. But I think this is going to be quarterback centric. You take Joe Burrow, take him. He's the best quarterback in that division. I'm taking him over Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson can't complete a 3rd and 8 pass when he needs to. He still can't. I don't know why I don't understand why that's such a thing, but I don't know why Joe Burrow is ranked so highly in all of these things. He hasn't been irrelevant in 2.5 seasons. I don't understand why he still gets his flowers when he's not playing. But I will take Joe Burrow healthy this year. Texans, it's good. It's fun for football. It's really good for the future when you have a young quarterback coming in right away. I think an interesting name there with the AFC South is the Colts. Shane Steichen's a very good coach. And if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, even if he can't, if Joe Flacco can come in and kind of do 70% of what he did last year, we saw with Gardner Minshew, they can win games with Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, etc., and A.D. Mitchell, who they drafted. But I will take the Texans. The Chiefs, obviously, and I said that fast because I want to take the rest of the time with the AFC East. I'm taking the Jets. And let me explain why.
I was wondering if this would happen.
Yeah, let me explain why. In one game, I would take Aaron Rodgers 100 times out of 100 to win one game over all the other quarterbacks in that division. And it's not close. I take him over Josh Allen. I take him over Tua for sure. I don't care. He's played in -30 wind chill. He's played in the summer. It's a very Tom Brady-like situation with Aaron Rodgers. And I'll tell you what. One thing Aaron Rodgers hates more than anything is not being a talking point. And he's seeing Patrick Mahomes. And he's like, you know what? I can still be Patrick Mahomes one-on-one in a game in the playoffs. I can still do it.
He thinks that.
Fuel him this year. If he stays healthy, he doesn't do anything that would be, cratered because of his age. He's a pocket passer who can move around a little bit. And he's never been a guy that's been that fleet of foot. Patrick Mahomes has embraced the run more than Aaron Rodgers ever did. Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Breece Hall, Jalen, the kid they drafted out of Wisconsin. The defense is good when healthy. They got arguably the best corner in football. CJ Mosley's still there. Quinnen Williams is a top 5 interior defensive lineman. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, they can win the division. And I'm taking them to win the division. And again, because you give me Buffalo versus Aaron Rodgers in Orchard Park in whatever week when it's cold, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers. I don't care. It doesn't, and he probably has, aside from Tua and Jalen Waddle, the best offense in that division now.
Yep. So
you're just sleeping on Hurricane or Volcano Rodgers. I loathe him as a person. Okay, this for what how he's approached, not his anything other than how he's approached his career from a business standpoint. He's one of the most egomaniacal quarterbacks we've ever seen in the history of sport. And I'm still taking him over any other quarterback in that division.
And he's really good at football, too.
He's a good football guy, yes.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, with that being said, we predicted Super Bowl winner or the Super Bowl matchup. We predicted division winners. Now it's time to talk about who's going to get those wild card spots in each of the conferences and who's not going to make the playoffs, because got some hot takes on that one as well. So we'll dive into that now.
First, we can do that too. This episode of Locked On NFL Thursday is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That's not all they have, man. They've got the super deal. They've got curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. They have seat views before you buy. This is the absolute game changer. Tyler and I agree. Say you're like, listen, I want to go to a baseball game, okay? I want to go see the Diamondbacks, or I want to go see the Red Sox, or wherever you live, and maybe you want to sit in a section that you've never sat before. Maybe there's a huge there's a righty home run here, and you want to sit in left field, but you normally sit down the third baseline. Before you buy the tickets, you can click on the row in section. It'll show you the vantage point that you'll be seeing if you were to buy those tickets. It's an absolute game changer, and Game Time's where you get it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Game time.
All right, final segment. Locked on NFL Thursday. Tyler Rowland at Tic Tac Titans, Locked on Titans, Alex Clancy at Clancy's Corner _ Locked on Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. This is one of our most fun shows to do because you know what's coming.
Yep.
And NFL's right around the corner. A week from today, Baltimore, Kansas City. Wild card teams, Tyler. I'll kick it over to you first. Let's start in the NFC like we did last segment. Give me let's go the obvious first, the most obvious, and then we'll do wild cards as the overlay states after.
Okay, so the most obvious wild card that I have in the NFC is the Lions. I think basically anybody who covers football expects the Lions to be a playoff team this year. I think having them as a wild card is maybe a wild card statement, but I think the Lions absolutely are the number one wild card far and away. I think Green Bay just has a tremendous season ahead. Yeah, and for me, you can go a couple different ways, but for me, it's like it's now consistent as gravity. So Rams, I feel like they're so well coached. Matthew Stafford's so good. People are sleeping on Cooper Kupp, who's now fully healthy. They've got Kyron Williams. They've got Blake Corum. They've got a good young defensive core. I think the Rams, I could have said the Packers because it's the opposite of what we talked about last segment, where it's two NFC North teams are going to make it. But I feel like the Rams, because there's three spots, I think the Rams are going to be a surefire. They're like the Steelers in the AFC. It's just let's stay here. Here. Okay. I do not have the Rams making the playoffs. Okay. All right. And let me just say why. Yeah. The Puka Nacua injury already. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line is super banged up. Matthew Stafford's an older quarterback. It's not good if the offensive line is not going to be in a good spot. They obviously lose Aaron Donald, which changes things. They just traded their number one linebacker, Ernest Jones, for absolutely nothing to the Titans. Very surprising move there. So I think that they've lost a little bit with the injuries and just some of their changes on the team, that I think that they have a down start to the season. They play well at the end, but they miss out. So I just wanted to pop in and say the Rams are one of my teams that I have not making the playoffs that I think is a little bit of a wild card. Yeah, fair enough. I do have I think that in this instance, and I'm going to tell you one who's a dark horse after this, but I do think the Cowboys will make the playoffs. I think they're better atop their roster, opposed to other NFC teams, because listen, the NFC still, they've got two really good teams. And I still think you have to call the Eagles a really good team because they got a really good roster.
They
Yeah,
drafted 2 corners to take the place of, to bolster that room. They still got all of the receivers and all the tight ends, and Jalen Hurts is a an above average quarterback. So I will take the Cowboys to be making the playoffs in the NFC.
Okay, you have one wild card spot left.
Yeah.
No Packers yet, who is my Super Bowl
it'll
prediction.
be the Packers.
Okay, good.
So what about you? So let's do that, and then I'll give you my wild.
Okay, so obviously you have the Lions winning the division. I have the Packers winning the division, but we have both of those teams making the playoffs.
Yep.
So I have my final 2 teams. I have Lions, my top wild card. My final 2 teams, I have the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
All right, so the Bears, I think they have an easy schedule early on the first half of the year. I think that Caleb Williams is good, and I think that they have a really good roster around them. They've added a bunch of talent on defense. The offensive line is not terrible. The wide receivers are obviously very good. Some good tight ends as well. I just think that the Bears are going to be 9-8, and they're going to get one of the wild card spots in the NFC because the NFC isn't as deep as the AFC is. And then with the Seahawks, I just really like Mike McDonald, and I think that they have good personnel on offense, and if their offensive line stays healthy, then they're going to be fine. They got a new offensive coordinator. So I'm going with the Seahawks and the Lions and the Bears as my wild card predictions in the NFC, which mean no Cowboys, no Rams, no Bucks. All of them out.
Well, yeah, and I can appreciate that. I think what CJ Stroud did last year is making people lean more on Caleb Williams just being able to do it. I don't have them making the playoffs. I think he's going to struggle more than people think. He's a rookie. CJ Stroud missed a couple games last year. Case Keenum got them a massive win when he was hurt, a game that they had was that against the Titans? That they had no business winning last year. Okay.
Right.
The CJ Stroud effect is directly affecting people thinking that Caleb Williams is going to come in and be an MVP candidate or be a guy that can win the NFC North and win 12 games. You're going to have to win 9 or 10 games, and it's really hard to do that as a rookie. Okay. So I don't have them, obviously. And Seattle, listen, Geno Smith's story has been incredible. The fact that he got paid after being a backup for 9 or 10 years in the league and has been good and he's been the guy. Here's the deal. Can he be a guy that throws the ball 35 times a game and win 10 or 11 games?
That's not what you want.
That's the question. But the offense is going to be completely different. And they're going to unlock Jackson Smith and Jigba this year. They've got a lot of guys. They got Noah Fant. It's not just DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I don't see that. Now, one dark horse for me, and it makes no sense, but it's just because of the division that they're in. If Jaden Daniels is special, I could see them winning 8 or 9 games this year. And it's not because I trust Cliff Kingsbury, because I don't. It's not because it's more that they can get 2 wins against the Giants. They may be able to split the home and home against the Cowboys. We have no idea what Philly's going to be. Okay? Jaden Daniels looks to be a guy that has the best of Lamar Jackson and can huck the hell out of the rock. That could mean that they win 2 games. And this is the wild, okay? But if you give me Jaden Daniels, a guy who nobody has tape on, this is the excitement of the unknown in the NFL, where all you have is LSU tape. Nobody even watches the ASU tape anymore.
Right.
He was so bad there. This could be something that is very special in Washington. And I just don't know, if they trade for Brandon Ayuk, obviously that would help. The defense has taken a step back after letting Montez Sweat go and Chase Young go. But because they're in the NFC East, and you tell me they win 9 games at the end of the year, I'd be like, not the craziest thing that I've heard.
Right. Fair enough. All right, well, let's move to the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
Go a little bit quicker through the AFC.
Yep.
Mine's a little crazy here. Okay. I have the Ravens because I have the Bengals winning the division, so I have the Ravens making the playoffs for sure.
Yep.
Then I have the Steelers. So I think the Steelers will be a little bit better than people expect. Mm-hmm. I've been on that. And then I do have the Colts. Look, the Colts didn't make a lot of improvements this year. The Colts didn't make a ton of improvements, but they had a pretty good roster. And if Anthony Richardson just stays healthy, they're going to be a little bit better. So I think the Colts win 9 games again, and they make the playoffs in the last spot. That would be my prediction right now. But I don't think the Colts are a legitimate contender for anything else, which some people seem to think
so
that they are.
So I have the Bills.
Okay.
because I had the Jets winning the division.
Right.
Have
I have
the
no
Ravens.
Jets. Yep.
Yeah. And then for me, dude, it's like, again, because of the division in which they play, I don't
Yep.
see a world where the Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals make the play. It can't happen. There's only so many wins to go around, especially in the AFC. They play each
Right.
other, 4 times each. So for me, is this a Jacksonville year? Like, is this a year where Houston, like, this is the final test for Trevor Lawrence, even though he just got a massive contract extension. If he and Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram can do it, and Indy doesn't take that next step, like, I could see Trevor Lawrence coming out when nobody's even looking, and Tony Wiggins is dancing on people's faces at the end of the year when they win 9 or 10 games and make the playoffs. I'm picking Jacksonville over the Steelers, first of all, because of the division in which they play. And Trevor Lawrence is a more talented quarterback than Russell Wilson at this point in his career, even though Trevor Lawrence hasn't had the career that everybody expected. So,
for me,
yeah,
that means no Browns, no Jags, no Chargers, no Jets. And if we're throwing a wild card, I'll do some home cooking quickly.
Okay.
If things hit, if Will Levis plays well, the Titans can win the final wild card spot. They don't have a super crazy schedule. Improvements on the offensive line, added stuff at wide receiver. They're trying to build a defense with money. That rarely works out, but if it does, just saying, that's I know it's home cooking, but out of all the teams you would consider at the bottom in the AFC, like the Patriots, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Titans, those are the teams that get put in the bottom of the AFC always. Out of all 4 of those teams, I truly have more faith in the Titans than any of them to make a playoff spot,
and
if there was. I'm not predicting it, but
neither of us are believers in the Dolphins either. This is the year where they regress.
Yeah, the Dolphins, no Dolphins. Yeah, this is the year that the flash in the pan comes crashing down because they got worse in the trenches. So we care all about the other stuff. But anyway, Alex, are there any wild cards in the AFC you want to mention?
No, it's so deep, man. They're so. Right. It's so. We'll see what the rookies can do, because the rookies, not only for their own team, but if they win games and take away from division teams, if there's so many rookies, they're going to get chances to play. Like Bo Nix has wowed people. What if they win 7 games? That means they're going to beat division teams. It's not just going to be beating the Raiders 7 times. So I mean, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I think it's just a wild west in the West. If any team makes the playoffs in the West that's not being quarterbacked by a rookie, I would not be surprised. It's just that deep.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but season's right around the corner, folks. Got some changes right around the corner as well. Alex, it has been an absolute pleasure, but we're not going too far, so everybody stay tuned. But with that being said, that's going to do it for us today. As I tell you guys every week, start your weekend early and stay safe out there.